Hey, friends. So, I noticed something over the last couple days. If you have followed the last two posts or so, you know that I did a very short introduction to meditation with a teacher at Karma Choling, which I think is a Shambala center based on Chogyam Trungpa's teaching from many years ago. And it was a very cool experience. I spoke a little bit about it yesterday. And one of the things that I always notice when this happens, when I spend prolonged time in meditation and in that space of contemplation, is I begin to perceive friction in my life more prominently. Now, this is kind of no surprise if we really kind of understand what's happening, because we're beginning to settle into a space of connection. The mind has a chance to clear some of the clutter, and the issues that we're experiencing become more prominent. This is why so often when we're beginning a meditation practice, if we don't have a lot of experience with it, we do a little meditation and we start to feel more anxiety, not less, more frustrated, not less, and we think meditation isn't working, it's not for me. And anytime that I do a kind of deeper immersion, because I meditate obviously very regularly, but anytime I do a deeper immersion like that, a sort of a version of that shows up. Now, luckily, I kind of know how it works. So even as I'm having the emotional experience of, not necessarily loving the experience of seeing whatever the junk is that's coming up, or feeling the feelings that come up, I know what's happening. I understand that this is what happens. And the fact is, it's a good reminder. It's like, oh, look at what I haven't been looking at. So that is something and then last night I had a little time with Katie, and we had a really great evening, and it gave me a chance to, I think, process a little of that and open some doors. But I'm highlighting that as a mechanism almost, because it's something that it's a very consistent experience of mine. And I think all of our takeaway on the call yesterday at the end of the meditation session was, yeah, we should all be meditating more. That's the ticket. I've known for years that virtually every major teacher that I've ever heard says 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day. And it's like, well, how are you going to find 2 hours a day? And what they respond invariably is, you don't have time not to do it. So I'm looking at that and evaluating how I might climb back into that ballpark. But anyway, another kind of more psychological mechanism that I have noticed, and I picked up on this a day or two ago, but it felt like it was an outgrowth of this time in contemplation, was a particular kind of indecision. Like, for example, when I'm still calling my existential crisis. which is a kind of ongoing feeling of rising anxiety about rising and falling, because it kind of comes and subsides, about where I'm headed, and it's really framed around just my practical life. It's not so much my my sense of my orientation in the kind of deeper spiritual sense. However, what I've noticed is there's a kind of inopportune link that I sometimes make psychologically between the decisions in my daily life, like where am I going, what am I doing, and this notion of transformation. And this is relevant to my overall experience here, and my overall the crisis that I've been wrestling with for a while, and that I've been continuing to kind of keep focus on, because it's the kind of thing that I could very easily sweep it under the carpet and say bye and just kind of go back to distraction. But I'm really not into that idea. I've had some conversations with a number of people who have really kind of, it's not so much that they've convinced me, but the conversations have allowed me to see, oh, this is something I have a massive opportunity here. So as I engage with that, I'm observing that my decisions about concrete things in life, I sometimes attach them to this overarching idea, which I talked a little bit on my last post, or 2 posts ago, about this idea of transformation, the idea of enlightenment as being an ego fantasy. It's like the ultimate ego fantasy is enlightenment. Well, when I connect individual concrete decisions in my life to that idea, all of a sudden, no decision can be made, because the decision is carrying way too much weight, way too much significance. And obviously this is unconscious, or at least it's pretty semi-conscious. In the moments when I'm experiencing that paralysis, it's only a semi-conscious link. Sometimes I will actually connect I will connect it intellectually, but I'm not fully aware of the emotional sort of how I'm infusing a mother load of emotion into a single decision that ultimately is not. First of all, the notion of transformation that it's attached to is a kind of erroneous one. And second of all, the decision has virtually nothing to do with with transformation. So that's another mechanism that I'm learning to identify. And again, I think people with a deep kind of who feel a spiritual impulse, who feel an impulse to make our lives about this dimension of existence, it's easy to do that. It's easy to start imbuing everything in our life with this kind of higher significance, and it's a pretty slippery slope. It doesn't really help. It doesn't really take us either in the direction of a good, solid, practical life, or in the direction of genuine transformation. But it's funny, because even as I just kind of think through the people that I've connected with in my life who have this, there's definitely something there. There's definitely a kind of connection between this impulse and this orientation towards the world, and a tendency to kind of not really necessarily compartmentalize our decisions accurately. And so I'm kind of offering that both to myself and to anyone who might, benefit from just noticing that connection and going, wait a minute, but is that really what's happening? Is this decision that I'm making really about my soul's evolution? Or do I need to kind of commit to that, go there, do that, make my life about that, sure, and then make a decision, do what needs to be done on a kind of concrete level, and not conflate those two things, not spin them into a spiral of heightened significance that's ultimately kind of its own illusion, it's its own avoidance. And I think, again, because I've spent this time now over the last couple of days in contemplation and really having some perspective, it's just like meditation is always for me just a process of kind of sitting, and little by little, it's like I get a little further from the junk of my life, further and further away. And before you know it, I can see patterns. I can see, oh, look at that. Oh, it's like I can actually view my own experience from a different vantage point. And these patterns show up. Inspiration shows up, and a kind of confidence shows up, a willingness to be decisive, a willingness to say, this is what I'm doing now. Not, the nature of the universe is immense, it's enormous, it's infinite, totally overwhelming. Every decision about what we do today and how we are going to live our practical lives shouldn't be overwhelming. That's not healthy. That's not a good place to be. So, anyway, that's kind of what I got today. Thanks for watching, folks. Much appreciation, much love. Have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow.